road with you people. It has been an amazing year for me, an amazing journey. If you would have told me that a year ago I'd be standing in Ponca City, living in Austin, Texas, standing where I'm standing, feeling the way I'm feeling, I would say somebody needs to go to drug rehab. But let me tell you a little bit of a story, a little history, so that we can get brought up to speed. I'm just like most of you. Born in Oklahoma. Was taken to Texas, held hostage. I had a hurricane that lived inside of me, so they couldn't take the chance of leaving me at home alone when I was young, because I'd tear the house up or I'd kill my sisters, or God knows what. It just was bad. That's how bad it was. And I felt it. And I used to give whippings all the time, but they never worked. And so they would ship me off to my grandparents' house. They had a farm in Meeker, Oklahoma. That's a small town, and it hasn't changed, and thank God things don't change. But I visited that town about 5-6 years ago. I wanted to find my grandfather's farm, and I wanted to find the church that my grandmother drugged me to every Sunday, because that's what we have to do with our kids. And she was Catholic, which made it worse, because it was the same sermon every single Sunday. And I go, what's the point? It's like watching the same cartoon over and over and over again. But I learned what it was like to work for a living. My grandfather and grandmother had their farm as a working farm, and everything on that plate that we ate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner came off that farm. And everything that they lived on came off of that farm. They sold milk, they sold eggs, they sold their hay, and they struggled. My grandfather was not a perfect man, both physically and spiritually. We never had conversation, but I looked up to him, and he was one of my favorite human beings, and I found peace on that farm. He was strict. I never crossed him. I crossed my grandmother one time, and she slapped dickens out of me, and it broke my heart that I would drive my grandmother to slap me. And it was because I was arguing with my grandfather. And I learned what it was like to be at peace and be in a place that felt right. And when I was growing up on that farm in the summer times, I got to know my grandfather and what he really liked. And he's a big sports fan, and we're not that far from the University of Oklahoma, and that's when I became a University of Oklahoma fan. Born in Oklahoma, held hostage in Texas, but got to see what it was like to see the greatest show on turf, as Coach Switzer used to say. And it was amazing. It was back during Steve Davis's years when they could do no wrong, and they looked like they were giant men. And I was a sports kid too. I ran around and played sports because that's the way my father wanted me to be, and it helped get that energy, that hurricane out of me. So, when I was young and living back in home and going to school, he was coaching me, and he was very hard on me. My father was extremely hard, never good enough, never met the expectations that he wanted me to meet. Even though I felt like I had a good game, it was always criticism. You didn't do this right, you didn't do that right, you could have done this better. So that's all I remember. And fathers remember that when you talk to your kids. But I was also a troublemaker in school, in elementary school. I was in the principal's office daily. And back in those days, the principal had the permission in public schools to whip you with a paddle. And we should probably go back to that, right? Some poor boys here that probably need a whipping or two every now and then. Because I know what it's like to be you four boys. One day I went in the principal's office and he broke that paddle on my butt. And I thought, well, I guess this is is over, isn't it? Yes, I won. So I got in trouble the next day. Walked into the principal's office, popped up, hey, well, I guess we're just going to talk today. He goes, nope, we got a brand new paddle made of oak. It's got holes in it. That one stung. But it didn't sting quite enough because I still stayed in trouble. I was always on the teacher's bad list. Well, eventually you get to the point when you get into school where you don't have a choice. You can't go play for another team. You're playing for that school's team. So the coach came up to me and he said, son, I've seen you play. I've heard about you. You're an amazing player. You got a God gift, and that's an amazing thing. I was making my grandfather happy. He didn't get to see me play very often, but I made him proud. I made my father happy sometimes, but at least he was proud a little bit because he liked the praise. And this coach sits me down, about 13 years old, and he says, I'm not going to let you play for my team. Wait, what? Why? Don't you guys want to win? Well, I only want people on my team that are good people. And you're a disruption in class. Teachers tell me constantly you're in trouble, you're fighting, which I was always, meet me at the bike rack, bro. I'm going to teach you a lesson. That was what we did. And I was the toughest kid in school. I loved that title. Not doing good in school and grades. So he had the power to take something away from me, which was the first time I'd ever had that confrontation with somebody. Well, wait a minute, you can change my life, and not for the better. So I learned a little thing when I was watching my grandmother, especially as I got a little older. And that 1978 year was a very interesting year for me. That first, like I said, drug me to church a lot, but I didn't really get it, but I watched her. Kids watch what our parents do. That's what they do. They're sponges. They might not follow what we say, but they watch what we do. And they mimic that. They become us later, whether you like it or not.